Hola, hola, and bienvenidos, familia. I am so excited that you guys have tuned in to Tech and Tequila. If this is your first time here, we are so excited to have you. If you are returning, I am so excited to have you as part of our community. Now, if this is your first time, Tech and Tequila is the podcast where technology meets community, and every conversation is paired with a good pour and some great vibes. I'm your Techie Chica, Lopez Shelby, and as we head into the closing of the year, the last episodes of 2025 are going to be filled with gratitude, reflection, and of course, a lot of tech and a little bit of tequila magic. This year has definitely been one for the books, hasn't it? From stories of innovations to lessons in resilience, from chasing digital nomad dreams to building legacies that last, it has been about so much more than just tech. It's been about freedom, impact, and creativity, and obviously advances in technology. So today we're going to raise a glass to the road we've traveled and the one still ahead. And we're doing it in true tech and tequila fashion, with a spotlight on a jaw-dropping tequila collab that I am almost positive that you guys did not see coming, because I didn't see it coming. And of course, a breakdown of a brand new law in Texas that could literally save your business thousands of dollars if those devious bad hackers come a-knocking. So pour yourself a copa, settle in, and let's toast to lesson learned, leaps taken, and a bright future ahead. Salud, familia. This is Tech and Tequila. Okay, familia. So I did say in the intro that there was a brand new collab upon the horizons. And unless you're living under a rock, or maybe you don't really love Karol G like I love Karol G, you may not have heard. So the Casa Dragones has actually collabed with Karol G. So if you haven't heard of Casa Dragones, it is a boutique tequila house that's been redefining luxury sipping, just teamed up with none other than the global superstar Karol G. Yes, La Bachata herself. Now she has her own Cristalino, and it's called 200 Copas by Casa Dragones. Now, if you haven't heard of this, and this is the first time you're hearing, I'm going to tell you a few things straight out the gates. I don't know exactly where you can get it. I'm not exactly sure how much it costs, but I definitely will be on the lookout for it in the upcoming weeks because I am super excited. I want to try it, and we'll definitely have it here on the show. That is one thing I know for sure. So fact one is going to be, of course, this isn't your average celebrity going, I'm going to slap my name on this tequila. Karol G actually worked with Casa Dragones over the last couple of years to shape the bottle, to make sure this collab was in line with what all she believed in. And of course, she didn't want this just to be some quick brand deal where she just slapped her face and said, here we go. So this is definitely something that's been well thought out and planned. Of course, the other thing behind it, so 200 Copas is made from añejo, aged over 12 months in custom American oak barrels. It is filtered down to the Cristalino. What does that mean, you may ask? You get all the depth and complexity of an aged tequila, but crystal clear in a glass. It's smooth, clean, and perfect for sipping neat over ice, which, by the way, you know you have a good tequila when you can sip it, because that's the best way to have tequila, is just plain and by itself. All right. So one of the additional things about this is that this is going to be an exclusive launch. Each batch is capped at just 500 cases. So it's small batch artistry, pure and simple. That is why you're hearing so much buzz around this, and collectors are scrambling trying to find this. So if anyone wants to send me one, I'll take it. I'm super excited. Hear my call, Karol G and Casa Dragones. I'm super pumped about this. And of course, we have to talk about the flavor. And so on the nose with this tequila, you'll get citrus and sweet floral hints. On the palate, you're getting a roasted agave and an almond. And the finish is honey spice, warmth that lingers beautifully. So, familia, this is one of the most authentic celebrity spirit pairings that I personally have ever seen. I know there's some debate about whether it makes sense or not, but I think it is all in the line with part of our community. And of course, Karol G's music celebrates resilience, joy, and living boldly. And of course, Casa Dragones has always pushed the envelope when it comes to tequila craftsmanship. So together, they have created something that's both exclusive and approachable. So here's your toast. The next time you queue up Karol G's 200 Copas, hopefully we can all raise a glass of the 200 Copas, because that is the synergy, that's the authenticity and the honesty. That definitely is a vibe. So salute to Karol G and of course Casa Dragones for the crossover that we did not know that we needed in this season. All right, so now y'all know what to get me for Christmas. Early Feliz Navidad. In the intro, I talked about the fact that we were going to cover a new law in Texas. And so for those of you who haven't heard, SB 2610 is a new cybersecurity law that has recently been enacted. It actually went into effect on September 1st of 2025. So we're going to shift gears, obviously, from talking about tequila to really covering this law. So as we look at Senate Bill 2610, and like I said, it officially went into effect September 1st of 2025. And here's the kicker. If your business has fewer than 250 employees and you follow this law, you actually can shield yourself from punitive damages in court after a data breach. That's right. Texas has created a safe harbor law. Now, you heard what I said. You have to have fewer than 250 employees, and you do have to have, of course, a framework in place. So what does that mean? That means if you can show that you had a cybersecurity plan in place prior to the breach, you're not going to get hit with those crushing, business-ending punitive damages, right? There's always going to be some kind of like, you have to inform people you need to do this. And as business owners, we always want to do our due diligence. And just off the top of my head, if you have seen any of my posts recently on Instagram and on a couple other places, I talk about how one of the businesses, industries that's getting hit right now is law. And like within the last 3 weeks, I have gotten several supposed emails from law offices that I knew weren't legit just by taking, a preliminary look. And I was like, let me see what's going on here. So I do like a dark web scan, and I was shocked for a moment because one of these law firms had 336 things showing up on their dark web scan. And I was like, wow. So what are we doing? Like, what's going on? Which that leads into a whole nother conversation, right? But let's talk about this. So here's the reality. Data breaches aren't just for Fortune 500 companies, and they're not just for these large enterprises. And it's not, I like to say every business has the possibility of having some kind of breach. But let's talk about that a little more. So hackers are literally targeting everyone from oil field service companies to small town law firms to retailers and even your abuelita's favorite little insurance agency. For small businesses, one breach can just absolutely terrorize them, and Texas lawmakers realize this. So with SB 2610, they've created a lifeline for small and mid-sized business protection from the kind of punitive damages that can shut a business down for good. Think of SB 10 as a lime wedge after your tequila shot. So you bite it first and you protect yourself from any kind of burn later. So let's go a little more in depth. So what does this law actually say? And obviously, I always give this as my caveat, is definitely look up, read this for yourself, do your own research, take this as like the intro to the law. If you have an MSP, if you have an MSSP, if you have legal counsel, all of the above, I say talk to everybody, because the more knowledge you have, the more power you have, and you are more protected, which of course is the goal. So here is what SB 2610 lays out. It applies only to businesses with fewer than 250 employees who own or license sensitive personal information. Okay. Now, you as the business owner, as the business entity, must have administrative, technical, and physical safeguards in the workplace. I'm going to say that one more time. Administrative, technical, and physical safeguards in the workplace, right? Your cybersecurity program has to line up with a recognized framework. And I want to take a moment right here. If I start throwing out acronyms and you are like, I don't know any of these, what are you talking about? Okay, first off, that's time to schedule an appointment with Shelby Tech so we can talk a little more about that. But the second thing is we cannot ostrich ourselves and put our health in the sand as business owners in general and be like, okay, I don't know what to do, because we got to take steps towards this. So I'm going to tell you some frameworks. So of course you have, the NIST cybersecurity framework, CIS controls, ISO 27, I'm going to say 000 or ISO 27000, high trust or SOC 2. Now, this law scales to the business size, right? So if you have fewer than 20 employees, you need the basics. What is that? That is password protection. That is employee training. And before we get too far into the weeds with this, okay, you need to have multi-factor authentication. You need to make sure that all yourself and your employees understand, like, how do we have difficult passwords, to guess? Let's not use the same password for our banking, for our Netflix account, for our Hulu. Well, if you're still, you still have Hulu in this day and age, whatever. You want to make sure, you're changing your password at least every 90 days. You want to make sure that your multi-factor authentication is set up, and that you are training your employees on things to look out for. Now, there are several different entities that can help set up employee training that can include like what to look in phishing emails, do all those things. That's what they're talking about, right? So if you have between 20 and 99 employees, you need to follow CIS controls, right? And IG1, which obviously is a little more in depth. There's a little more to that, but I want to keep in mind every step of this, right? You need to have it in place, and you need to have everything written down where everyone understands it. Like, it can't be where you're just like, oh yeah, I have it. No. We need to have it written down. You need to make sure everything's up and working. And to what extent you can, you need to make sure that your employees are following the protocol that you put in place. Between 100 and 249 employees, you need to have a full-blown framework. All right. Now, if you're thinking, I have no idea where to start, I don't know where to begin, I always say it's better to start and have a discussion about where you're at. Do some of the preliminary tests, like a vulnerability scan, just have a simple discussion with your MSP, your MSSP, trusted tech advisor, whomever that might be, and you can set up a framework, right? I would like to say that there's several out there that you can look at. And of course, if you are an entity in oil and gas, or you are in retail, or you are in any of these, you, in theory, should know, like, hey, this is what they want me to follow. There's going to be something that they're going to tell your industry that you need to keep up with, that you need to follow. And that's what I would highly recommend. And here's a big one. If the frameworks are updated, you have 1 year to update your program. This is not a set it and forget it kind of deal. Okay. So I want to backtrack, and I want to talk about this for a minute. And this is the best, which I like to say, kind of real life example I can think of. I have worked with mid-sized companies that have moved into a building, have gotten their internet, have gotten a firewall at the time. And let's say that's 4 or 5 years ago. And when I sit in an office with someone in their organization and we're talking, and I go, oh, so when's the last time you patched and updated and checked your firewall? And they get like this blank stare. Okay. I want you to think about your framework in that same manner, is that this is something you need to check on the updates about. Let's not, you don't just be like, we're good and walk away. This is something that you need to periodically reevaluate and make sure that you are staying within the standards that are required. And that's in general. So, we've got oil and gas, we've got retail, we've got all these things. They're going to update, because just like the bad actors, these hackers are finding new ways to get in. Well, they're going to put new items in these frameworks for you to look, new things that you need to keep abreast of, right? So at the end of the day, what this safe harbor law is saying is meet the standard for your size, prove you cared enough to take your cybersecurity seriously, and the courts are not going to pile punitive damages on top if you have a breach or when you have a breach, because I like to say not if, but when, right? So you may be wondering, so why does this matter? Like, why are we talking about this? Why? And I mean, if you're new to Tech and Tequila, hey, I'm sure you haven't heard my long ongoing speeches. And basically I would say, if you were playing a drinking game and I was like, let's make sure we're protected, you would not have a liver anymore. But why does this matter? So Texas has decided to level the playing field here. They know small businesses can't afford to have a Mercedes, a BMW, cybersecurity practice in place. I mean, and let's be real, when you see these big companies like Target and other places getting hit, who have these huge frameworks in place, and all it takes is one little thing. We all know how Target got hit, right? If you don't, Google it, you'll figure it out. I also like my other personal one that there's not a favorite, but let's also look at how were some of the casinos hit. Because there's two of those, and both of them, it's like, wow. So think about that. But Texas realized that, small businesses can control certain things, but they needed to be realistic. And they also knew that a lawsuit shouldn't completely destroy a company that's honestly trying to do right. So in essence, this law, of course, encourages small SMB, medium-sized businesses to be proactive instead of reactive. Instead of waiting until the breach happens and then getting very upset over, we will say spilling your tequila, you're rewarded for locking that bottle in the cabinet before anything happens, right? And for a lot of small business owners, this could mean the difference between surviving and not surviving, or not knowing what to do. So I am going to give you a very small, basic, practical checklist that says, let's start somewhere. Let's think about where we're at, and let's make it simple. So if you would like to take some notes, if you're sitting in the car, bookmark this to listen to later. But here's a practical checklist. So first off, figure out what is your tier. Now, this seems pretty common sense. Like, okay, do I have under 20 employees? And I want you to think about that. If you use contractors, if you use anything, I would actually say knock yourself up to the higher tier. Think of Target. That's all I'm going to say. Google it, people. Google. Okay, so are you under 20? Do you have 20 to 99 employees? Do you have 100 to 249? Like, figure out what your tier is, all right? Then I want you to think, what framework do I want to use? And you can look at this in a lot of ways. So obviously there's NIST, there's syscontrols, there's ISO 27000 or ISO 27000. Pick one that matches your tier. And pick one that you feel confident with. If you're doing this by yourself, you can do it by yourself. If you are doing it with your MSP, your MSSP, your trusted advisor, that you feel comfortable, that you understand the framework, because that is going to be a big chunk of it. Like, understand, like, I'm going this route. This is what this means. I could actually do an entire another podcast just on these different frameworks. We can talk about them all. And maybe we will get the amazing Maria on here and we can have her digest a couple of these in the near future. If that's something you're interested in, definitely comment on this and let us know. Or, hey, Send us an Instagram message or LinkedIn, wherever you choose to find us. The next thing is, I want you guys to write a program. That's right. Whether you audio it, you write it down, you utilize some help from a large language LLM or ChatGPT or whatever. I want this program to cover the basics: passwords, employee training, encryption, backups. That's right, I said backups, access control, and incident response. And I know earlier we talked about physical. So a lot of people don't think about physical access, but that is something you want to think about, is who can get into your data closet? How hard is it to get in? Like, a part of me, I used to work with this client that was a pharmacy, and to get into any of their data devices, you had to have a 10-foot ladder. So that already prevented a lot of people from doing anything they shouldn't, even though it was very much out in the open. Long story short, it was up that high because we had to move it to cover the requirements so nobody hit their head, it didn't have any harm, things like that. It was an ADA thing. But I think it's very important, and I want you to remember this again. We want you to write it down, but here's the thing, that's only half the battle. The secondary battle is you want to implement it and make sure that it's working like it's supposed to. So what does that mean? Okay, so we want you to train your team at least once a year, because what is between the floor and whatever that device, your people are the biggest risk, and they are also your best first line of defense. Like, do they know, if we use the example of these emails that I received, do they know if there's grammatical errors, if there is PII information in these emails, that this could be fraudulent? Do they know not to click on things? Do they know not to enter their information? All of these things. And, I've gone to a lot of trainings, but I'm sure we've all seen them where it looks like it might be a particular bank, but there's just one or two things wrong, or there's a grammatical error, or when you click on it, even though it says that, it's really something else. Those are all things that you need to train your team on. And that's kind of just the basics, right? The second thing is run drills. So walk through what happens if you experience an incident. Like, who does what, when, where, how, what does this look like? Who am I talking to? Who am I calling? What are the requirements? Do I need to notify? Who do I need to notify? If it is Sunday at 2:00 in the morning, whom do I call and what do they do? So run these drills. I'm not saying run at 2:00 in the morning, but I'm saying prepare people to run them at those times. All right. And of course, keep everything that you are doing somewhere. So now you have something showing like, hey, we have this, we did this, so save training rosters, policy updates, patch logs, backup tests, because guess what? If you can't show proof, you don't get the protection. And of course, what did we say earlier? And we're going to say it so that people in the back can hear it, right? Stay current. If a framework is updated, if a requirement is updated, if something is updated, update your program, right? Because you don't want to wait until after a breach. Because if you can't show you had the stuff in place before, then this law is not going to help you. You need to make sure that you have all of this done before. So those are some practical things to do. Now, I want to talk about, kind of give you an analogy. I want you to think of this SB 2610. Think of it like car insurance. If you've been a safe driver and you've got coverage and you're protected, when something happens, that is what SB 2610 is. But it's for your customer data. It's for your clients. It's for yourself, right? Without it, one cyber attack could leave you footing a large bill, right? And we don't want that. We want to make sure that you are taken care of, that you are controlling what you can control, that you are doing your due diligence, right? And that's literally what SB 2610 is talking about. So What we want you to do is, instead of footing the bill for a courtroom full of lawyers or having to figure out how to take care of this, whether it's PCI, whatever it is, HIPAA, we don't want you to be dealing with that, going back and forth. We want you to be pouring shots of tequila for your employee at the holiday party, because everything this year has gone great. You are protected. You are doing your due diligence, right? Because that is what we want you to be doing. So things that have come up, right, as this new law has gone into place, as I have had some discussions with some of my clients, things that different people that I've talked to. So some people have said, okay, well, what if I outsource my IT? All right, we all want to do our due diligence. And this is why a lot of places require, that's right, it's part of required, to have a third party do testing periodically, not you and not your MSP or not your MSSP, depending on who you're handling, right? So number one, you are still ultimately responsible. So make sure that whoever you are using aligns with the framework that you desire and gives you the documentation so that you have all your little duckies in a row. I wish I had my little ducks. I could put them up here right now, but make sure that you have it. So the second thing is, okay, well, what if I have cyber insurance? That's great and fabulous. Or what if one of the other questions I commonly get is, I have insurance already. So I know we talked about this in a previous episode about your cyber insurance is only as good as the answers that you give it, because let's just be legit, insurance doesn't want to pay out a lot of times, right? So the thing is, you doing your due diligence, right? Insurance is great, but insurance still requires you to have a bunch of these things in place. They require you to have this. And so you're really just protecting yourself even more. And then, of course, it says, how fast will I have to prove compliance? Well, guess what? If you're keeping it up, that question might be mute. So we want to make sure, keep your paperwork and logs ready and set to go. Think about it. Like when I go talk to some of these companies, I have to sign the log. I'm logging in saying, I, Kat Lopez Shelby, with so-and-so is here on this date and that, and check out. And those logs are part of what they're required. Keep that as your mind. You want to keep these up to date. You want to make sure you're doing your due diligence and you don't want to put them off, right? So, mi gente familia, here is the big takeaway from today. SB 2610 gives Texas small businesses a chance to get smart, get covered, and get confident. It is not about perfection. It is about proving that you care enough to protect your customers, your employees, and your business. So if you are a Texas business owner, now is the time to talk to your IT partner. So whether that's a trusted tech advisor like Shelby Tech, give myself a little shout out, give us a call. We would love to talk to you or advise you on how to get your framework in place, or maybe even just to check your framework. Or that's your MSP, or that's your MSSP, or whomever you have that is taking care of this. This is a great time to get started and make sure you have all your little duckies in a row. I'm gonna have to bring ducks to my next episode. So let's raise one last toast, because there's one important, and that is to protecting your data and your dollars. So sit smart, be secure. Of course, secure makes you smarter. We all know that. And remember, punitive damages are bitter, but your tequila should not be. It should always be smooth. So first and foremost, familia, I want you to take a moment and I want you to think about today, right? SB 2610 gives Texas small businesses a chance to get smart, get covered, and be confident. Because it's not about perfection. It is about proving you care enough to protect your customers, your employees, and your business. So if you are a Texas business owner, there is no better time than now to, of course, talk to your IT partner. So your MSP, your MSSP. If you don't have a trusted tech advisor, give Shelby Tech a call. You can go to our website and we can do a technology review for you. It's a great way to start. And make sure and check your frameworks. Make sure that everything is updated. There's no time like the present to get started, because doing it today is better than putting it off till tomorrow, right? So because this is Tech and Tequila, we are going to raise one last toast. So you're going to see my little invisible tequila here. And that is because we are going to salute to the fact that you are out there. You've made the decision to protect your data and your dollars, because we know that you like to sip smart, stay secure, and we know that you are taking care of your business and your customers. So, and of course, your tequila should always be smooth. So definitely we can drink this super lightly. But so, Familia La Comunidad, thank you so much for joining us for Tech and Tequila. If you found this episode to be super informative, you really enjoyed it, by all means, please share it with a friend, share it with 10 friends, put it on social media, tag us, and of course, leave us a review and comment below. Thank you so much. Buenas tardes, buenas noches, or I would say, bienvenidos. Have a great evening.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of Tech and Tequila. I hope you enjoyed our conversation today. To stay updated about all things tech and more, don't forget to visit us at our website, shelbyts.com. If you loved what you heard, remember to show your support by liking, sharing, and subscribing to our podcast. Your 5-star ratings and reviews mean the world to us and help us to reach more listeners just like you. So muchas gracias again for joining us with Tech and Tequila. Thank you so much. You learned a lot about tech, and maybe you had a nice drink of tequila.